Hey guys, Ernie here and welcome to the Paleo Hiker MD channel. Alcohol stoves are nothing new to the channel and I love finding new ones to check out and put them to the test. Ever since I started looking at stoves and trying out stoves, I have seen the ones from the company Vargo and I've been pretty interested. Now recently on eBay I found a $15 new to me version of the Vargo Decagon stove. So stay tuned and we'll find out whether this long desired stove on my end was worth the wait. Thanks for watching, guys. Alright, let's stop here for a second before we get into this video. I filmed this video and I came up with some conclusions, and as I was watching it and I edited it, I thought, did I do something wrong? Am I looking at this wrong? So let's do this. Let's watch this video together. This is the original video that I put together, and afterwards we'll sit down and talk a little bit about my concerns about my original video and whether or not I changed my mind. This is the Vargo Decagon stove. Dimensions are 1.3 by 4.2, so this is a 4.2 diameter and then 1.3 tall. The burner itself is 2.4 inches in diameter, if you're wondering as far as putting your pot on there. Weight is a very impressive 1.3 ounces. Fuel capacity is 2 ounces, and it's actually more of a fuel requirement. We'll talk about that a little bit later. It has built-in pot stands. You can see right there, these little nubs. That's where your pot sits on. Claims to boil 2 cups of water in 5 to 6 minutes. Now I don't know what type of water temperature, etc. they're using. I don't think this will boil 2 cups of water that quickly, but we'll find out. Cost is $35, so not super inexpensive, but not crazy. Now the directions are interesting. It states very clearly that you have to fill this all the way up to get it to prime. And trust me, that is the case. I filled it up with an ounce of fuel and lit it, and I got a little flame from here for like ever, right? So you have to fill it up all the way. We'll see here in a little bit exactly how much it takes. It says it takes 2 ounces, so we will fill it up to the very tip top. That's the only way that you can get it to prime. Let me show you guys what the flame looks like at night, and then we'll boil some water. Okay, so we're gonna light up this stove, and I'm gonna leave it running. We're gonna see how long it takes to prime up. It is full of alcohol, which is annoying, but here we go. Just gonna let it go. You can see that it is absolutely full of alcohol. So let's see how long it takes to actually bloom. I'm just going to let it go. Let's see what happens. Now it is about probably 55 degrees out here. That shouldn't make a big difference. I mean, come on. I mean, most alcohol stoves will definitely bloom almost anywhere, no matter the temperature. I don't know exactly where we started it. We're probably getting close to about a minute. It's kind of starting to go on the sides over there, but not really. Oh, it's starting to go. There we go. I'm guessing probably about a minute and a half. Also, I will note that it has a very erratic flame pattern. It's kind of like some of the DIY stoves that I've made that I really didn't like the way they turned out. As you can tell, I'm a little bit negative about the stove. I really don't like certain aspects of it. Now that it's, there it goes, it's a little bit better. It does have a very wide flame pattern, so you want to make sure you use a pretty wide pot. But there you go, takes a pretty darn long time to get that thing to bloom. Alright, so we're going to try to fill this thing up. I have 2 ounces of fuel. Let's see if it takes the full 2 ounces. And that is exactly what it took. 2 ounces. I spilled a little bit on the edge here, but that's exactly what we needed. So 2 ounces. That's kind of a bummer. We'll talk about why later. That's a lot of fuel to have to do it to be able to prime it. Let me turn down the lighting a little bit, guys. What I'm going to do, I'm going to light this and I'm going to start the timer, and we're going to time how long it takes to prime, but then of course we're also going to prime how long it takes to boil the water. We've got 2 cups of water here sitting at 64 degrees. You can interpret it whichever way you want. I think once we light this flame, every amount of time after that till we get it boiled counts towards the boil time, because obviously you have to wait. If we put this on top before it blooms, it's not going to work. It's going to snuff it out. It's not going to work well. So I can't just put the top right on it. I have to wait for it to bloom. Inside the house here is probably about 70 degrees. So we're going to start this up. We're going to start this timer. And again, let me turn the light all the way down for you guys. There we go. That's good. Now you can see how long it takes to prime, and you can see the time pretty well. There we go. Let's wait and see. I'm just going to leave this rolling. Well, that went interestingly. Obviously we had some spillage. Not exactly what you want, but look at that, guys. That's crazy that it did that. Let's go ahead and put this on. The fact that it did that, and I'm on a tile surface, so it's okay. But if you were on something that you shouldn't be, it's starting to go out. Make sure it's nice and primed. Actually, it looks like we should be okay. I'm going to go ahead and put it down. Okay, I think we're okay. It's not completely primed. Man, it just goes crazy, doesn't it? It's primed enough to let it go. So we're good. Let's see now. So that was a 2-minute process, and it's still not completely primed. I'm going to leave it here. That was a little bit shady there, how it just erupted. It's like it just came out and spilled everywhere. That's concerning. I've boiled with it several times, but I've never had to do that. So let's see what happens here. It is on enough. You may not see it, but in the back it's fully bloomed. Anyway, let's see what happens here, guys. All right, so we are... Okay, so 8 minutes, 10 seconds for a boil. We're going to take that off. I can tell you guys that this thing is basically still completely full. It also has that kind of shaking almost. It has a very inconsistent flame. And now we're going to wait. We're going to see how long it boils for, yes, but it is very annoying that there's no easy way in the field to put it out. I don't think it's the easiest thing to do. So we're going to let this burn. We'll see how long it burns for. I imagine it's going to burn for quite some time because it is 2 ounces of fuel. But let's wait and see. We're going to keep that timer going until we start to lose that circle of flame. Still putting out some heat for sure. Barely still have coming out of the jets. Alright, there it just pretty much died. So 18 minutes 48 seconds. So what did we learn? We learned that it boiled water in a decent amount of time, even with the priming. 8 minutes 10 seconds. It burned for 18 minutes 48 seconds. That's on 2 ounces of fuel, so that's pretty expected. But we had a major problem at the beginning, and to be honest with you guys, it had never happened to me. It surprised me. It never happened to me before. But when I filled it up all the way like that, it spurted out and could have easily caused a fire. Of course, I always do things on top of a heat-proof surface, so I was ready for that, but nonetheless, very concerning if you're out somewhere, and this is a completely flat surface, and we'll talk about that at the end here, but completely flat surface, you have to fill it to the very top, and if it's not completely flat, what's going to happen? Well, this stove's going to tilt a little bit, and you know where that fuel is going to go. Anyway, decent boil time, very nice burn time for 2 ounces, but limitations nonetheless. So let's talk pros and cons, because this is a pretty interesting stove. As far as pros go, it's very lightweight. It's stable for the most part. It has its own integrated pot stand. It's a one-piece design and it has no moving parts. Those things are always excellent. Now for the cons, and this is where things start to go kind of south for this stove. You have to completely fill it. It takes about 1.5 to 2 ounces of fuel to completely fill it. And if you don't, trust me, I tried. I put 1 ounce of fuel in there and I lit it and it never primed. It just sat there with a little bitty flame coming out of the top, never primed. Now Vargo says on their website that it's easy to reclaim the fuel and it's easy to extinguish the flame. But let me tell you guys, I don't find it to be the case at all. First of all, how do you extinguish the flame easily when you're out on trail? I really don't know. You'll have to carry a pot, which you can do, don't get me wrong, but it's not easy. Another problem is that it is a very wide and stable base, no doubt whatsoever. But here's the thing, you have to fill it all the way up. So if you're not completely level, fuel is just going to spill out everywhere, and that's not good. The way it's designed, it's like a little bit of a moat up top, and I'm telling you, any little angle off and fuel's going to spill. Spilled fuel means burning things that you weren't expecting to burn. Despite all that, even if you choose to fill it all the way with the 2 ounces of fuel, which is a tremendous amount, it still takes a long time to prime, and that's pretty frustrating. And if I'm being a little nitpicky, I don't like the flame pattern. It's too wide, so if you have a smaller pot and you put it on there, basically the flames just go around the pot. So like a Toke 750, for example, which is very commonly used. Very hard to use with this stove because most of the flames miss the actual bottom of the pot. This combination of cons really leaves a lot to be desired for this stove. So what do you guys think about this stove? There are great reviews out there, and I don't understand them necessarily. I don't like the stove. I think that it has way too many things that just miss the mark. In the end, I think if you have $35, there are a lot better ways to spend it than the Vargo Decagon. Again, that is my opinion. I have tested tons of alcohol stoves, so I kind of have an idea what I'm looking for. You look at something like the Fancy Feast cat can stove that you can make for dollars. It pretty much beats all of these issues, except for being able to carry fuel in it. I understand that completely. And you can't put it out easily, although it is easier to put out because it's much smaller. You have to have a pot that's big enough to go around the outside diameter of the bottom base of the Decagon, where the cat can is smaller, so you can put a pot right over the top of it. You also don't have to be on a super flat surface. Ultimately, it's a way better stove than this production model. In the end, if you want to spend your money, I would suggest looking elsewhere. If you want ideas on what to get, make sure you check out my stove playlist. I have over 100 stoves on that playlist. Testing, DIY, making your own stoves, things like that. It's not just alcohol stoves, but wood stoves, gas stoves, solid fuel stoves, all things stoves. Make sure you check it out down below and up here in the cards. Is it the worst designed alcohol stove out there? I don't know. That's probably a bit much. I don't like it, but the worst is kind of hard to say. What I can tell you is that it's one of my least favorite alcohol stoves that I've ever used. Do me a favor, guys, if you like the video, hit the thumbs up down below. Really helps spread things across YouTube. If you're not subscribed, hit the subscription button, and if you want to make sure you don't miss any videos, hit that notification bell and you will be the first to know. Enjoying some time here in Arkansas. Big storm is rolling in this afternoon, so I'm kind of limited to being inside, which is just fine with me because I'm always pretty busy. So being forced to stay inside isn't the worst thing in the world. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, stay tuned for more videos here on Paleo Hiker MD. So is my claim that this is the worst commercially available alcohol stove, basically, that's kind of what I was trying to convey, is that reasonable? First, we'll look at how much fuel do you actually have to put in there to get it to prime. I've got the instructions right here. I'm going to read to you exactly what the instructions say. It says to fill, carefully pour alcohol into the center hole until full, approximately 1.5 ounces. Always fill the stove completely to ensure proper operation. Do not overfill. So I added 2 ounces, and that seemed to create a problem. Now initially I read these instructions and I thought they want me to fill it up as high as I possibly can without it overflowing. But if you watch the footage carefully, which I did whenever I went back and edited everything, it looks like maybe a little fuel spilled off the edge. And I think what happened is that the fuel expanded a little bit and actually shot out of the jet holes, and that's why we created that flame all around. So I presume that if we add 1.5 ounces of fuel, that it should bloom relatively quickly and it shouldn't create a little fireball, right? So we're going to try that out. Now I can tell you that if you put 1 ounce, it will not bloom. It'll sit there with a little, like I said in the original video, it'll just have this little bitty flame forever. So let's measure out 1.5 ounces. We're going to time how long it takes for it to bloom up. And we'll see if we have any accidents. Alright, we're going to get our 1.5 ounces here. We'll measure this out. There it is. You do have to be careful filling this up because you can overflow it. You have to just let it kind of settle. You see it's getting close to the top there. You just have to let it spread out. Once it's all in there, just kind of let it settle a second so we don't have any explosions here. Okay, you guys should be able to make out both the stove and the timer. So we're going to start it up. Let's see how long it takes to prime up. Here we go. Make sure you guys can see, and you can. Let's see. Just waiting. Just watching this little blue flame. This is what you'll see if you try 1 ounce. I bet you it would go for 30 minutes. So we're well over a minute 23 seconds, minute and a half. I put a little light there so you guys can see the timer better. We put the exact amount that they asked us for. We're at 2 minutes. Haven't seen any signs of life. In case anyone's wondering, we are in a controlled environment. It's about 70 degrees in this shop. That shouldn't be affecting things. And we sit and wait. This is crazy, man. 3 minutes. It's not doing anything. Not doing anything. I'm starting to maybe hear a little bit of activity in there. So I think it's just starting to get hot enough to consider blooming. Now we're at 4 minutes, no action. I don't know if y'all can see, but I mean the level of the gas or the fuel is just to the very top of that center hole. So I mean it's full, not over full, but full. Oh, I just saw the first very close. Oh, it's starting to have some life here. Hopefully you guys can see that. Oh, we're getting close, and there it is. There it is. 4 minutes 59 seconds. Y'all see that? Basically 5 minutes. Holy moly, 5 minutes for this thing to fully prime. Y'all saw it. Now second, I've been told by multiple people that it is easy to extinguish the flame and recollect the alcohol. I don't know, it doesn't seem very easy to me. But so at the end of this test, I went ahead and tried to extinguish it and put the fuel back into a bottle. Let's see how it went. Okay, so this is a pretty typical pot for me. You definitely want to use like the ever new mug pot, which is what I have, the 900 milliliter. Let's put this on here. Should put it out. Okay, put it out pretty easily. Now we need to try to get it into our pot. Let me move the camera. I put this down because I don't want this to go everywhere. Now, obviously it would be easier to pour into this because it's got a wider mouth, but if you're out there in the field, you're going to use something like this. So let's see how easily we can pour this in. Here it comes. And we're doing it. It's doable. You got to be real careful with it. Oh, spilling. Spilling. Yeah, you're getting drops everywhere. You're getting most of it in, I mean, I'll admit. You get, oh, no, that's not good. Okay. Okay, I mean, I would say we got 75% of it back in. Probably 75%. Not the best thing in the world, but sort of worked. So does this change my assessment? Now, the instructions clearly state to fill it completely and to not overfill. Now, I did not originally overfill it to the point where it was spilling over the edges. I spilled a little bit, but it was not over the top of the actual level of the stove. But obviously, I probably filled it up too high, so that was an error on my part. Now, the problem is that you have to be between 1.5 and 2 ounces, somewhere in between there, and if you accidentally overfill it just a little bit, you can create a serious hazard. Not to mention the fact that it still takes a long time for it to prime using 1.5 ounces. And lastly, like I said originally, you have to use that full 1.5 ounces. Even though you're going to have plenty of fuel left at the end of your boil, most likely, you're going to have to extinguish it and deal with that alcohol, which, as we saw today, is doable, but it's a pain. So I'll admit that I guess, put too much fuel into it, and that's what created the problem, but I was doing that based on the instructions, and based on the fact that if you don't put enough fuel in it, it will never prime. These are two pretty huge design flaws, and it does not change my overall opinion of this stove. Why spend the money on this stove, which is so finicky? You have to add a certain amount of fuel just to get it to prime, and if you overfill it just a little bit, even on accident, you could create a big problem. So that is my story. I'm sticking to it. Roll the outro.